Hi, everybody. Sam White here, founder at Shakespeare in Detroit. I'm excited to stop by our YouTube channel and do a bit of an update this February 2025. It's been a while since I've done an update, maybe a few months. I know you've been seeing more content coming from Shakespeare in Detroit, but we haven't done an official update, or I haven't done an official update in a while. And so I'm excited to catch you up on the company and tell you what's going on with us. I've been really busy. We've been doing a lot of meeting and having a lot of conversations with our funders about our plans for the future. We've also been figuring out what makes the most sense to program right now. I have a pretty solid idea about what we're going to program for the year, but I have to tell you, things are ever evolving in this new world that we're living in, this new nation that we're living in. If you've been keeping up with the news, you know 2 weeks ago there was a bit of a freeze for federal funding, and then just a few hours later, apparently that was paused. And so there's been a lot of confusion and chaos and unease for those of us who are running nonprofit organizations. And I have to say, if you're a smaller organization, and when I say small, I just want to make sure that it's clear that I mean small in infrastructure and operational budget. I do not mean small in ideas, because Shakespeare in Detroit's ideas have always been quite innovative, ahead of their time, our ideas, and our work has always pioneered and made space for other people to do their work. And so our work is big, but our infrastructure is much smaller than, say, a larger organization like Detroit Opera, for example. So if you're a smaller organization, as I was saying, having a threat of federal funds being cut off is quite jolting. Now, we don't always, for our long sort of trajectory, because we've been around 12, almost 13 years, we've always depended on individual donations. It's only been in recent years that we've started to expand our portfolio of income through grants, federal grants, also through private foundations, through other means. But I have to tell you, the past 3 weeks, in January and now in February 2025, it's been quite exhausting. And I have to tell you, as a founder, I'm quite resilient. Shakespeare in Detroit started 3 weeks after the city filed for bankruptcy. We pioneered the first ever Shakespeare in the Park experience within the city's boundaries. We're the first Shakespeare company ever in the city of Detroit. And for us to have that start right after Detroit filed for bankruptcy, you have to know by way of that we are made Detroit strong. We're full of grit. I'm full of grit and imagination and flexibility and agility and all of that. So we're resilient as a company. I'm resilient as a founder and as a leader. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, something that was really unique about Shakespeare in Detroit, rare even, was that we were able to scale our budget and our work. And we officially started our Shakespeare STEAM program. We piloted the program in 2019, but then the program became an official program of Shakespeare in Detroit in 2020. And that was quite rare or unique, because so many organizations were applying for federal support and grants because they needed to make their rent. And because we've always had low overhead cost, that wasn't a thing for us in 2020. So we were able to scale our work. And that's amazing and exciting, and a part of our trajectory as resilient artists and as an agile theater company. But now, 5 years after the pandemic, there is another administration, an administration that was in place in 2020. And this is not a political chat, but I will say, as far as our sustainability, it really is scary to run a nonprofit in these times, because it's hard to plan when things change daily, sometimes hourly. And so I just wanted to have that transparency with our audience. I've always tried to have connection and a digital, relationship, and a relationship in analog, of course, because I know so many of you personally who come to our shows. But since the very beginning, because if you start going through all the videos from Shakespeare in Detroit here on YouTube, you'll see that our oldest video is from 2013, because that's when we started this YouTube channel. So I've always tried to tap in and let everybody know what's going on with the organization. And recently, because for a few years we neglected YouTube, but recently I've been trying to create more digital experiences for the organization. And I'm really excited about the prospect of having some interns with us this summer who are really, really digitally savvy and can give you all some content that you can enjoy online from your favorite classical theater in Detroit, Shakespeare in Detroit. But I've always tried to be transparent. So I'm going to let you know, just keeping it 100% honest and real with you all. It's an exhausting time to run an organization, not just in Detroit, but I would say probably the nation. But I have to speak specifically for Detroit because that's where I'm from and that's where we are based. We are Shakespeare in Detroit. And so this organization was bootstrapped. It was literally bootstrapped. I started the organization with $3,000 and have grown the organization to a 6-figure annual budget. And I worked most of the time that I was running Shakespeare in Detroit up until 2017. I had a corporate job. So I was taking, hours before work, my lunch break, and then after work to focus on Shakespeare in Detroit. And finally in 2017, I went away and I did a fellowship at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And that started a cadence of theatrical opportunities around the country for me and around the continent, because I worked at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I think I'm the first Black director that they ever had at the festival, and that was in 2019. I've worked at several universities for both undergrad and grad acting and directing programs. I have worked, of course, at the Stratford Festival. And I've had so many wonderful and beautiful opportunities because of Shakespeare in Detroit. But I've rarely only worked at Shakespeare in Detroit because most of the resources have been to pour into our teaching artists, our actors, our designers, student scholarships, and that meant that I had to do other things in order for my own personal ends to meet. And so this year, before November, before January, I had always planned on being in Detroit and not traveling so much so that I could focus on Shakespeare in Detroit solely and some personal obligations that I have here in the city. But I have to tell you, the last 3 weeks have been a gut punch. And because Shakespeare in Detroit has always been so agile, so resilient, we can certainly and most enthusiastically make it through another period of time with uncertainty, chaos, all of that, because we're from Detroit and this is what Detroiters do. We survive and we continue to be productive and to put positive things into the world because that's what we're called to do. We are pioneers. We invented the car. We have done so much that has contributed to the quality of life of the entire globe that it's just part of our conditioning. It's in our DNA as Detroiters, especially those of us born and raised here, to continue to create and to pour into our communities. I will say, though, this has a caveat, is that I am 12, almost 13 years older than I was when I started Shakespeare in Detroit. And while I think, and I say this most humbly, but I'm from Detroit, so other Detroiters will get this, and other sort of cities, towns where you're from a population that's mostly blue collar, you'll get this. Like, we can outwork everybody, anybody, anytime. But I have to tell you, personally, some of my priorities have shifted. If you've been following our journey on YouTube, you know that I've lost loved ones, including both of my parents. And so that foundation no longer exists for me in the city of Detroit. Those pillars of strength, inspiration, are no longer physically with me. My mom, for example, was someone who was very invested in Shakespeare in Detroit, who was very invested in me, obviously. And she would always say, Sam, you need to promote Shakespeare in Detroit more. And I'm thinking to myself, Mom, that's all I do. But she wanted more from Shakespeare in Detroit because she really recognized the impact of what we were doing and are doing, continue to do to this day, this very moment. But I don't have those beacons. I don't have my mom and dad anymore. And again, being 12 or 13 years older than I was when we started the organization, of course, my dreams and priorities, because I am a human, have shifted and evolved. And so I am in a place in Shakespeare in Detroit's journey where I am thinking about the next iteration of this organization, the next step forward for Shakespeare in Detroit, and how I can separate myself from Shakespeare in Detroit. Not immediately, not in the near future, but how I can do that, because the organization, if it's healthy, right, a healthy organization outlives its founder. A healthy organization can move forward without its founder. If it's healthy. I think that some of the most unhealthiest organizations are the organizations where people sort of stick their claws in it. Founders stick their claws into the organization, and they don't make room for new ideas, new energy, new innovation, and new leadership. So I just want to acknowledge here to our community who check out our YouTube channel that I am thinking about, the next generation of Shakespeare in Detroit. I'm so proud of what we've done. I mean, nobody can take away the fact that, when we started Shakespeare in Detroit in 2013, the queue line wasn't even finished. They had started like building out the track, kind of. I don't even think the track was down, actually, because we performed at Grand Circus Park and Woodward was just sort of dug up. It was dirt everywhere. But I'm so proud of Shakespeare in Detroit, because nobody wanted to start a Shakespeare company here, or if they did, they didn't have the audacity to do it, not until we showed up. And now, sure, people want to perform more theater here, more Shakespeare here, but that wouldn't have been possible without Shakespeare in Detroit creating a lane for that. And, whether folks acknowledge it or not, we all know what's what. And that's a part of Detroit's history that nobody can take away. We pioneered the first Shakespeare company in the city. We pioneered the very first Shakespeare in the Park experience within the city's boundaries. And as of this year, we will have given away $100,000 to Detroit youth through our educational program, Shakespeare STEAM, which teaches the science of lights, the technology of sound, the engineering of costume making, the art of classical performance, and the mathematics of set building. We have really created a lane for ourselves. And then our special events, which have always been quite popular. We haven't done an inebriated reading in a while. Stay tuned, because that's coming back this summer. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned to ShakespeareInDetroit.com. Sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss any news coming from your favorite classical theater here in the city, SID. You can also become a Patreon member, because they usually know about everything that we do a long time before everybody else. They're the first to know. And you can find us at patreon.com/ShakesInTheD if you want to be the first to know what's going on with Shakespeare in Detroit. And there's a tier for every budget. There's a $1 tier, $5 tier, $10 tier, $20 tier, etc. But yeah, I'm thinking about the next generation of Shakespeare in Detroit, and what succession could look like, how to move the organization forward so it can scale again. It needs to scale again, and then scale again, and then scale again. This organization has such great potential to become a worldwide destination. People love Detroit. I mean, this city has such great culture and history. Like I said, we make cars, and then that's not even, bringing into the conversation what we've done for music and Motown, and what we've done in the space of techno music. That's why we did our Techno Tempest back in 2023 to pay homage to Juan Atkins, the godfather of techno. There's so much rich history. The homes, the architecture, Albert Kahn buildings are in Detroit. There's so much incredible inspiration in this city, and Shakespeare in Detroit is so proud to be a part of that fabric of one of the most beautiful, I think, and iconic cities in the entire world. People from all over the place, from all over the globe, come to Detroit for inspiration. And I think that Shakespeare in Detroit has the potential to really be a tourist attraction in its next iteration. I also want to reassure you, though, that I'm not making an announcement here. I just like to be transparent with our audience. I've already talked to our funders, or most of them, and they all know that we've been doing this for a really long time. And again, the folks that I haven't talked to personally, those conversations are probably coming. I probably have you on my calendar as we speak to personally talk to you about what we are thinking about and planning for the next 3 to 5 years at Shakespeare in Detroit. But the world is different. You know, when I started Shakespeare in Detroit, the world was just completely different. I think the arts at that time, and excuse the barking. I'm literally at home. There's a big dog who lives across the street, and she's so loud. So sorry about that. But the world was different, and you know, the arts have never necessarily been a huge, you know, priority in the States the way they are in other countries, even though there is some funding, obviously, because we have the National Endowment for the Arts who support a lot of arts organizations in Michigan and beyond. But yeah, 2013, you know, when we did our first show, there was a much more robust appreciation for the arts. I'm speaking about as far as like funding opportunities. And I'm talking about systems. I'm not talking about people, because the people, you know, have always been interested and yearned and have always been hungry for the arts. But things have changed, you know, priorities have changed as far as leadership in this nation and in the world. And again, even though we're agile, we're resilient, and we're built for this, for sure, we're built for this. You know, there is a human behind this work who has such great commitment to this organization, but also has an even greater commitment to herself. So I plan on being on YouTube as much as I can be, because I still have the actual work to do. We're in schools right now. We're at the school at Marygrove. We're at Cass Tech. We're at DSA, that's the Detroit School of Arts. We're at Cesar Chavez in Southwest Detroit. We're at Clifford Academy. We're at Boggs School. We're going to be at Marion Law Academy soon, I hope. So, yeah, we have a lot going on via our educational programming. I'm planning for the summer show, which is going to be a youth production of Hamlet. I'm hoping to announce a fall limited run of something very soon for you all, and then some extra special events happening in the community. So we have some really exciting things coming up in 2025. Bear with us as we try to bear with this new world that we're living in. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy making art right now, everybody. It's not easy just navigating life right now. You know, everything's different. Everything's different. But we're from Detroit, and so even if things, you know, if we move on from things, or if someone else, you know, is given a gift to take and make even better and brighter, or, you know, even if we begin to prioritize, you know, our humanity, you know, over sort of the grind, it's okay, and it's all going to be beautiful. And I promise, no matter what happens over the next year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, I will continue as an artist I will continue to put beautiful things into the world. Because I am an artist, you know, I'm an administrator and a founder, but I'm an artist first. And that, it feels so good. My shoulders, if you saw them, my shoulders sort of kind of relaxed when I said that. I'm an artist first, and I'm very excited about reminding myself of that. You know, being an administrator is a lot of work. But yeah, things are changing, things are evolving. I'm so grateful for our audience. I'm so grateful to you for clicking on this video. I will definitely be keeping in touch as things unfold. We are here at Shakespeare in Detroit, the pioneers, the first to ever do it, the inspiration, the path creators, the folks who create the benchmark, the standard. We're still here, and we'll continue to be here. And as things grow and evolve, and as you continue to grow and evolve, we'll stay in touch. So I'll talk to you really, really soon. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything from your favorite. You don't want to miss any news from your favorite classical theater, the first Shakespeare company in the city of Detroit, Shakespeare in Detroit. I'll see you soon. Bye.